That situation with them two Negroes getting on that podcast is exactly the reason why black men won't give up patriarchy. They genuinely believe in the convenience that is sacrificing the well-being and the protection of black women for the validation of white men. Mind you, it's even more than validation of white men. This is coming from somebody who's lived in that world. Not only, I wouldn't call myself a coon. I was a pretty interesting character myself. But to witness the lengths that black people will go, self-rejecting, self-hating, coonified black people will go to compensate their lack of self-acceptance with the validation or the external validation of the leading class of society, or the leading demographic of society, is wild. It's almost like the only thing I can equate it to is like what when broke dudes get around a rich dude, what groupies do when they get around a rock star, what it's just like I don't know what children do when they get around their favorite school teacher. But this is how patriarchy is allowed to dig into, especially the black community, and just cut and divide, while also setting this foundation to disrespect and demonize the feminine, so we never actually have the opportunity to build communities of our own, like with our own authentic foundation, apart from these people that saved us from the same thing they created for us to die in. But in this video, I'm actually going to get into how not only white men perpetuate or incentivize this demonization of black women, but white women also perpetuate it as well when they are in relationships with black men. And it's more covert how it happens there, but it's going to be interesting when we get to that point. So the reason why black men are doing this for the validation of white men is because black men genuinely believe the man they can be in a life where they are only validated by people in their community, other men in their community and other people in their community, is not enough. They feel like the only way they can be genuinely validated in their masculinity is by other men, pseudo-masculine men, being able to compete against them, and then in that competition or like conquering them will validate their masculinity. So that's how patriarchy is allowed to exist in this almost completely male-dominated space where nobody else is allowed to have an opinion, because it's men thinking, oh, we can just compete with other men to find who's the most man of all, and then we'll just own whatever that man left behind, from like him losing to me or me conquering him, rather than, oh, this is strictly about communities and how communities are able to not only develop internally, but how communities are able to engage and collaborate and even compete at points with other types of communities, and how those with different like structures of gender or like energetic alignments, how those play different roles in influencing the development of independent communities. That might have been a little too smart, but white men have to set up black men to demonize black women so they can know this is a black man that they can trust. Because think about this. If I was a white man and I was a smart white man, I am testing the waters of this black dude, seeing how much he will submit to me by seeing how much he's willing to sacrifice his own people for my validation. Because my validation is completely an illusion. I can be lying about the validation I'm giving him. The support and the love and the respect that comes from within his community and in his people, that is real. Is he, black man, willing to sacrifice what is real to him, or what he has not been convinced is real in his own life? Is he willing to give up his reality for the illusions that I sell him? And how weak of a man is that, bro? But let's not get too deep into that. And it's funny because you're only given access to this validation or to this world of the white man after you've given up everything that you can possibly lean on or could genuinely support you outside of this transaction. So once you've engaged long enough in this transaction, thinking this is a fair trade, you sacrificing your reality for illusions, once you realize how traumatized you are being in this relationship, or abused truly in this relationship, you look outside of the relationship, but there is nobody else there because you've already sacrificed their well-being to be able to engage in this transaction that's already happening. And when I'm talking about them as like the others, I'm speaking about other gender, other demographic, other types of people that exist with black skin within our community that we have sacrificed because the only thing we care about is male, 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 and the validation of male, 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 no matter how much those males or men have sacrificed the validation and respect of the rest of the people in their community that actually uphold what it means to be community. Because there's only so much conquering and ownership you can do before what exists on the inside is a cult completely dependent on the selfish masters of the community, if you want to call it that. And if those masters don't serve those people, you're just waiting for self-destruction at some point. Because the people are supposed to learn how to serve themselves and learn how to share and cultivate and be selfless in their service of the collective, of the community, of people around them. But I'm not trying to get too lost on that point because then I'm going to not have time to speak about how white women also perpetuate this stuff too. So when white women are in relationships with black men, and I'm not saying all of you, but most of you, especially if you don't have these conversations, white women use black women as like a stepping stool into their own womanhood. So whenever white women don't feel fully validated in their womanhood or in their beauty or in their like perfection, which like society attempts to sell us, they go for the jugular and say, hey, you know what? Instead of me saying, I feel bad about myself, honey, black, Negro, can you validate me? You say, let's find out who other women we can tear down because their features don't look like mine, because they don't speak like me, because they don't smell like me, because they don't shower 2 times a week like me. And then let me get my Negroid to tear them down so I don't only have to feel like I'm psychotic and an asshole myself, but he's doing it, so it has to be okay. It has to be right. Right? Meanwhile, more times than not, the black man is getting fetishized for his beastly masculinity or fetishized for his looks, even like with the light skin era and whatnot, but never truly being appreciated for blackness. Only how you can sexually gratify the white woman, or how you can soothe her sense of like rebellion and wanting to be different than her family, even though if you have a kid with that woman, now her whole family hates your kid. Or this is one that people don't want to speak about enough because you guys don't ever want to accept the fact that white women have more power underneath this system that we live under than black men. But whenever white women want to remind these black Negroids who's boss, what are they going to do? False accusations. What are they going to do? Criminal this, criminal that, speaking on social media. Because let me ask you a question, black men. How many black women have come out and falsely accused black men, especially star black men, falsely accused black men of assault? Now, what is that number in relation to the number of white women that have done it? And you know why that is? Because these white women need to remind you, you don't have no power, Negroid. This is our White House, and you will always be a house slave. And this love we give you will always be conditional until you realize the only love that will ever be conditional, that you will ever have access to in this fucking life, will come from people that look like fucking you. Even if they're he's, she's, gays, theys, even if they're non-binary, even if they don't identify as human beings, if they look and live like your melanin ass, bro. That's your only freedom out of this fucking goddamn matrix.